absorptions, you can start to recognize where the absorptions are by recognizing how the delta is evolving. Blue below orange means that the absorption is on the bid. So when you see blue below orange, the absorption must be in at this price. Now that means that there's sellers into this price. So when you see that absorption, obviously it's up to you what you're going to do with it, but now you're starting to recognize the absorption, right? So that's where the absorption is. Now, if that's where the absorption is, one of the things we start thinking is, well, if that's where the sellers are and they keep coming in, they've tried to get a pump and dump, right? So they've gone for the girlfriend event, right? So they're going for the girlfriend experience, and they haven't been successful. You know, so they haven't really found the buyers coming in behind this pump and dump just here. They've obviously come up into the highs, and you've got this exhaustion print, because that's an exhaustion print. And obviously, if you're selling away from exhaustion back to absorption, that's, I suppose, what you're supposed to be doing most of the time. You see it? So the difference is when we get a fresh air sell, like gold just had a fresh air sell up here, didn't it? It's not a pump and dump. It's fresh air. So there's no absorptions, there's no anything. It's just market makers taking price higher because that's called price discovery. So this gives you this idea of price discovery, and obviously the sellers come in off that higher price at 16s, drops down to 11s. It's worth $500, guys. It's a pretty good trade. If you look elsewhere, we can see that we actually have the opposites taking place on sterling just here. You can see that there is a big absorption at the bottom edge, but we don't really see that at the time because the pink line was dropping. The one that we really see is this absorption on the offer here. So you can see that there's a lot of buying up into the offers here, right? There's a lot of buying here, which means that the exhaustion must be on the bid, at the bottom edges. So obviously this is the concept of a bear raid. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get sellers to come in at these lower prices to pick up some longs, and that's when we start looking for those possible long trades to buy back into the absorption above us. Do you see it? Do you see it? When you look at the euro dollar, you'll see something similar. In the early stages, all the absorption prints were down here. Well, when we got all the absorption prints, when they flipped that over, we got a lot of buyers coming in and getting absorbed on the uptick here. And they used that buying, because they'd originally set up a pump and dump. When they use that buying to set up a pump and dump at the top edge, then there's this perfect example of what that trade's trying to do. Now you might be saying, but is that not now absorption at the top edge? Yeah, but at lower prices. So now what they're actually doing is they're absorbing at lower prices, which one would imagine is very bearish the euro dollar. We start seeing that sell coming in, and we can check that sell against things like the euro dollar. We can check that against things like the carry trade and the pension fund line and whatever else you want to use against the euro dollar. So there's a lot of stories to get from all of this information, but it's up to you to try and spot what the story is, and it's up to you to try and interpret what that absorption means. It's not always about an absorption into an exhaustion and then a fade from the exhaustion. Sometimes that absorption itself is the trade. That's the trade that the commercials are doing. But if there's still a lot of sellers coming into an absorption, the probability is that the commercials will still let the price drop to squeeze the last ounces of juice out of the trade, and that's what you start trying to spot in terms of trade narratives, right? That's what you try and spot. But again, it's very much the case of just trying to find what trade it is that fits in with what you're trying to explore. The way this euro's setting up just now, this looks like a very bearish top line. So you could have sold the 44s. It's currently trading 30s. You would have made yourself 10 or 15 pips. And that would have been relatively straightforward from your understanding of absorptions and exhaustions and the concept of pump and dumps and bear raids. It is a good way to deal because it allows you to start using the delta, which is a useful tool, to try and recognize that you're buying into buying or you're selling into selling. And that's always a big bonus for you, because if you know there's buyers above you, it makes life easier buying at lower prices, guys, always.